Something has been shifting quietly across the American van life population over the past 12 months. A growing number of experienced full-time vehicle dwellers, particularly those who have been on the road for more than 3 years, and who have concluded that the Sprinter arrangement is structurally too expensive and too cramped to sustain long-term, have started selling their converted Mercedes Sprinters, Ford Transits, and Ram ProMasters, and buying in their place used commercial box trucks, Isuzu NPR trucks, Freightliner M2 trucks, Hino 268s, Ford E450 cutaway box trucks, and Chevy W-Series commercial vehicles, most of them purchased for a fraction of what a comparable Sprinter would cost and converted into full residential interiors that provide 2 to 3 times the usable living space and full standing headroom throughout. The shift has not been reported by any of the major van life content channels on YouTube. It has not been mentioned by any of the mainstream homelessness advocacy organizations, and it has not been picked up by the traditional news media that periodically writes about American vehicle dwelling as a growing housing crisis. But inside the population that is actually experiencing that housing crisis, the shift is real, it is accelerating, and it is based on a series of practical observations that anyone who has spent more than a few years living out of a converted van can independently verify by walking through a converted box truck for 10 minutes at any of the informal community gatherings that now dominate the American West vehicle dwelling landscape. This video is about the 8 specific reasons the population is making the switch. Every one of them is grounded in publicly verifiable data. None of them appear in the mainstream van life content ecosystem for reasons that will become obvious by the end of this video. Every one of them contradicts what the largest van life YouTube channels, sponsored by van conversion companies and off-grid equipment manufacturers, have been telling their audiences for the past decade. And every one of them is being verified in real time by the community members who have already made the trade and who are documenting the switch privately while the industry pretends the migration is not happening. The community that has been through it has independently arrived at a conclusion that flatly contradicts the industry narrative. The commercial box truck, dismissed by the mainstream van life industry for years as an ugly, industrial, unmarketable platform that no serious community member would consider, is turning out to be objectively superior on nearly every operational metric that actually matters to a person living out of a vehicle full-time. And nobody on YouTube is going to tell you what that conclusion is, because doing so would collapse the entire premium van conversion sponsorship ecosystem that the largest channels depend on to survive. Now, the first reason is the interior space multiplier. A high-roof Mercedes Sprinter conversion provides approximately 500 cubic feet of usable interior space. A high-roof extended Ford Transit provides approximately 490 cubic feet. A Ram ProMaster provides approximately 460 cubic feet. A 14-foot commercial box truck provides approximately 700 to 850 cubic feet of usable interior space. A 16-foot box truck provides approximately 900 to 1,000 cubic feet. A 20-foot box truck provides approximately 1,100 to 1,300 cubic feet. The comparison is not close. The box truck delivers between 40% and 160% more usable residential space than any van conversion on the American market at any price point. And the space is not just bigger, it is more usable because the walls are straight, the ceiling is flat, and the floor is a single continuous surface without the wheel wells and drivetrain intrusions that force van conversions into compromised interior layouts. The community member who spends 3 years living in a Sprinter conversion and then walks into a converted 16-foot box truck typically describes the experience as walking from a studio apartment into a one-bedroom, which is the correct order of magnitude comparison. The extra space is not an aesthetic upgrade. It is a functional difference between 2 categories of residential vehicle, and the community that has lived in both has concluded that the categories are not really comparable. Now, the second reason is the standing headroom. A high-roof Sprinter provides approximately 6 feet 4 inches of interior height. A high-roof Transit provides approximately 6 feet 5 inches. A Ram ProMaster provides approximately 6 feet 4 inches. Any adult taller than 6 feet 4 inches has to duck permanently inside a van conversion, which is the specific ergonomic reality the van life industry has spent a decade pretending does not exist. A commercial box truck provides between 7 feet and 8 feet of interior standing height depending on the model. The community member who has spent 3 years hunching under a Sprinter roof and then stands upright inside a converted box truck for the first time typically describes the experience as the single most significant quality of life improvement the Switch produced. Standing headroom is not a luxury. It is the difference between a residence that a human body can occupy comfortably across years of daily use and a residence that produces chronic back and neck problems by year 3. The community that has been through both has learned that the difference is not marginal, it is fundamental. And the headroom also changes what the interior can be used for functionally, because a full height space accommodates real furniture, real cabinetry, and real workspace arrangements that a compressed van interior structurally cannot support. Now, the third reason is the purchase price collapse. A used Isuzu NPR commercial box truck in reasonable condition runs $8,000 to $18,000 depending on year, mileage, and box size. A used Freightliner M2 with a 16-foot to 20-foot box runs $12,000 to $30,000. A used Hino 268 runs $15,000 to $32,000. A used Ford E450 cutaway with a box runs $8,000 to $22,000. A used Mercedes Sprinter without any conversion runs $28,000 to $45,000. A used Sprinter with a professional conversion runs $75,000 to $135,000. The base vehicle cost for the box truck arrangement is a fraction of the base vehicle cost for the Sprinter arrangement. And the money that stays in the community member's bank account instead of going to the conversion company is money that gets spent on operating the arrangement, on emergency reserves, or on the eventual exit into fixed housing that most vehicle dwellers eventually reach in one form or another. A complete box truck build-out, including base truck purchase and full residential conversion, typically runs $25,000 to $50,000. A complete Sprinter conversion typically runs $75,000 to $150,000. The differential is between $50,000 and $125,000 on a vehicle arrangement that provides substantially more living space and comparable functionality. The community members who have made the switch report that the money saved on the initial purchase functions as an emergency reserve that the Sprinter arrangement never allowed them to build, which changes the resilience profile of the entire vehicle dwelling arrangement in ways the van life industry never acknowledged was possible. Now, the fourth reason is the commercial-grade drivetrain. A Mercedes Sprinter uses a passenger vehicle drivetrain engineered for approximately 200,000 to 250,000 miles of expected service life. A Ford Transit uses a similar passenger vehicle drivetrain with similar expected service life. A commercial box truck uses a drivetrain engineered for commercial fleet operation with expected service lives of 400,000 to 700,000 miles depending on the model and maintenance schedule. The Isuzu 4 HK1TC 5.2-liter turbo diesel that powers most NPR commercial trucks has documented reliability records exceeding 500,000 miles on original components with routine maintenance. The Cummins ISB 6.7-liter that powers most Freightliner M2 models has similar reliability data. These are drivetrains engineered from the ground up for daily commercial use across decades of expected operation, not passenger vehicle drivetrains adapted for lifestyle marketing. The community member who buys a used box truck with 200,000 miles on it is buying a vehicle that has not yet reached the halfway point of its expected service life. The community member who buys a used Sprinter with the same mileage is buying a vehicle that is approaching the end of its designed operational envelope. That gap in drivetrain design assumptions is the single most important reliability data point the community has learned to evaluate, and it is the data point the van life industry has actively worked to keep out of the conversation because acknowledging it would immediately favor the platforms the industry does not sell. Commercial box truck engines are also serviceable using standard tools and standard training, which means the community member can perform basic maintenance without paying dealership rates. A Sprinter engine requires specialty tools, specialty diagnostic software, and specialty training that most independent mechanics do not have. Now, the fifth reason is the universal commercial repair infrastructure. Every American city of any meaningful size has commercial truck repair shops that service Isuzu NPRs, Freightliner M2s, Hinos, and Ford commercial cutaways as daily bread and butter work. The parts are common, the diagnostics are standard. The training is universal across the commercial fleet mechanic workforce that keeps every American package delivery, moving company, and small-scale logistics operation running. A Mercedes-certified Sprinter technician requires parts from a European supply chain and diagnostic equipment the local shop does not own. Community members who have been stranded in remote locations with a broken Sprinter waiting for a $4,000 European part describe that experience as the single strongest argument against ever owning one again. The box truck arrangement eliminates that risk entirely by being repairable by any commercial truck shop in any American town of any size, which is exactly the reliability profile a full-time residential vehicle actually needs. And commercial truck parts are cheaper than European van parts across nearly every category, because the parts supply chain is scaled to serve the entire American commercial fleet, rather than the smaller specialty market that Mercedes Sprinter owners have to work through. If this is landing somewhere real for you, drop your state in the comments below and tell me whether you have seen more box trucks with residential conversions showing up at boondocking sites or overnight parking spots in your area over the past 12 months. I read every comment, and the community wisdom in the comment sections on videos like this one has become the running record the industry refuses to publish. Now, the sixth reason is the full residential functionality. A converted box truck can accommodate a full residential bathroom with a shower, a residential-grade kitchen with a real oven, and a full-size refrigerator, a queen-size bed with permanent framing, a separate workspace or office, and dedicated storage for tools, clothes, and equipment. Every one of those features is possible in a box truck build-out without compromising any of the others. In a Sprinter conversion, every one of those features requires compromising the others because the interior volume does not support them all simultaneously. A Sprinter conversion with a bathroom sacrifices kitchen space. A Sprinter conversion with a full kitchen sacrifices bathroom space. A Sprinter conversion with a workspace sacrifices bed size. The van life industry marketed those compromises as lifestyle features. The community that has actually lived through years of those compromises has concluded that they are engineering failures the industry papered over with aspirational photography. The box truck arrangement does not require the compromises because the interior volume actually supports the residential functionality the community was told was possible in a Sprinter. And the residential functionality inside a box truck is not just possible in theory, it is standard practice in the community. The typical converted box truck build includes a permanent bathroom with a real shower, a real kitchen with a residential-scale refrigerator and cooking surface, a dedicated bedroom with a real queen or full bed, a living or working area with proper seating, and dedicated storage that does not have to fold or convert to serve multiple functions. The functional living arrangement inside a box truck is closer to a small apartment than to any van conversion the industry has ever built. Now, the seventh reason is commercial vehicle stealth. A converted Sprinter with solar panels, roof racks, and residential window tints signals unambiguously to any observer that the vehicle is a full-time residence. Neighbors flag it, security guards flag it, police officers on patrol flag it. The Flock Safety License Plate Reader network that has expanded to over 40,000 cameras across more than 5,000 American communities is designed to pattern match exactly the visual signature the converted Sprinter presents. A commercial box truck with plain white or generic livery reads to every observer as a delivery truck, a moving truck, or a small business logistics vehicle. Neighbors do not flag delivery trucks. Security guards do not flag moving trucks. Police officers do not run plates on generic commercial vehicles the way they run plates on modified Sprinters. And the box truck can be parked in industrial areas, at truck stops, in commercial parking lots, and in loading zones without triggering any of the enforcement patterns that have closed most of the residential parking network to visible van conversions across the past 3 years. The vehicle is not just less visible to enforcement, it is invisible to the entire pattern matching apparatus that has been built to remove vans. The community members who have made the switch consistently report that the enforcement citation rate they experienced in the Sprinter dropped to essentially zero in the box truck, which changes the operational cost of every night the vehicle spends parked in any American city. Now, the eighth reason is the resale value protection. A used Sprinter conversion takes 2 to 6 months to sell at fair market value because the buyer pool is limited to other Vanlifers who want the specific build-out, and the build-out has to match the incoming buyer's tastes and use case. A used commercial box truck sells within 3 to 8 weeks because the buyer pool includes commercial buyers who want the truck for delivery work, moving companies who want it for fleet expansion, small business owners who want it for logistics operations, and other van life community members who want to do their own residential conversion. The residential conversion of a box truck can be sold separately from the truck when the community member wants to exit the arrangement, or the truck can be sold with the conversion intact to another van life buyer, or the conversion can be removed and the truck sold back into commercial use at retained commercial value. The exit flexibility is not a small operational detail. It is the difference between recovering the vehicle's value and losing it entirely when circumstances require a fast liquidation the industry never anticipated the customer would need. Community members who have needed to liquidate their arrangement quickly for a medical emergency, a legal fee, or the first month of rent on a permanent housing opportunity have discovered that the box truck arrangement produces cash inside of 2 months, while the Sprinter arrangement takes at least a season. And the box truck retains commercial value even when the residential conversion is removed, which means the vehicle itself functions as a store of value in a way the Sprinter conversion cannot match once the build-out has been removed and the vehicle has to compete in the used commercial market against other Sprinters. Now step back and look at what all 8 of those reasons combined actually produce. What the population of experienced vehicle-dwelling Americans that has switched from Sprinters to box trucks over the past year has concluded is that the entire mainstream narrative around van life, as promoted by the largest YouTube channels, the largest Instagram influencers, and the paid van conversion industry, is based on a set of assumptions that do not survive contact with the actual conditions of full-time vehicle dwelling by someone operating on a working budget. The narrative assumes that Sprinters provide superior living space. They provide substantially less usable space than a comparable box truck. The narrative assumes that Sprinters are more mechanically reliable. They use passenger vehicle drivetrains with dramatically shorter expected service lives than commercial truck drivetrains. The narrative assumes that Sprinters provide better resale value. They take substantially longer to sell to a substantially smaller buyer pool. And the narrative assumes that the aspirational aesthetic of a converted Sprinter is worth the premium the industry charges for it. The community that has lived through both platforms has concluded that the aesthetic is not worth the premium, that the compromises are not worth the marketing, and that the box truck arrangement is objectively the better residential platform on every operational metric the community actually uses to evaluate vehicles. Now, the reason none of this has been reported in mainstream van life media is because the van life media ecosystem, as it currently exists in the United States, is almost entirely funded by advertising from companies whose interests would be harmed by the story. The largest van life YouTube channels are sponsored by van conversion companies that sell Sprinter and Transit conversion packages, costing $60,000 to $150,000. They are sponsored by solar panel manufacturers, battery companies, and off-grid equipment brands whose entire product lines are designed for the specific interior configurations that van chassis produce. They are sponsored by van insurance companies that make more money on specialty Sprinter policies than they would on commercial box truck coverage. And they are sponsored by the van life course industry, which teaches people how to build out vans and would lose most of its addressable market if the community concluded that a used commercial box truck is a fundamentally better platform. Every one of those sponsors has a direct financial stake in continuing to tell the audience that Sprinters are the smart choice. And every one of those sponsors has so far continued to make that case, while the population that has actually experienced both platforms has quietly reached a different conclusion. Meanwhile, this country continues to spend tens of billions of dollars per year on defense budgets, corporate tax cuts, stadium subsidies, and foreign military aid, while the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development spends only a small fraction of what would be required to actually house the population currently sleeping in vehicles across the American West. The people who have switched from sprinters to box trucks have not made that switch because they wanted the industrial aesthetic. They made it because the housing system that should have provided them with permanent housing has failed to do so, because the vehicle-dwelling infrastructure they were told to trust has turned out to be more expensive and less capable than promised, and because the mathematics of survival at the margins has, in practice, favored the vehicle with the commercial-grade drivetrain, the larger interior, the standing headroom, and the retained commercial resale value over the vehicle. The industry spent a decade marketing as the only serious option. The Isuzu NPR, with a converted box parked at a boondocking site tonight, is not a symbol of downgrade or compromise. It is a symbol of a housing system that has failed the population it was supposed to house, of a vehicle-dwelling industry that has misled the population it was supposed to advise, and of an American community that has quietly figured out what actually works by testing every alternative the industry offered and rejecting the ones the math could not support. That is the story nobody on YouTube is telling. That is the story the largest content channels in the van life niche cannot tell without losing the sponsorships that fund them. And that is the story the population that has actually lived through it has quietly been passing to each other in private conversations, Facebook group threads, and text messages, while the mainstream narrative has continued to promote the vehicle that the community itself has been abandoning. If this reached you tonight, subscribe, share it with anyone you know who is currently living in a converted Sprinter or who is considering purchasing one. Because the 8 reasons you just heard are the operational reality that the population that has actually lived through both platforms has independently verified. The van life industry will not tell them what they need to know. The mainstream news media will not investigate the switch. The government agencies responsible for housing policy will not acknowledge that the housing crisis has produced a secondary market for the commercial box truck arrangement that the community has been quietly building for the past 3 years. What is left is the community's own word of mouth and the small number of channels willing to say publicly what everyone in the community already knows privately. The switch is happening, the reasons are documented, and the question is whether the population still driving sprinters will hear about the switch fast enough to make the same decision before their next major mechanical failure or their next $3,000 insurance renewal forces the issue for them.